855-737-1045. All you have to do is give us the dumbest thing in sports this week. But first, you got to listen to ours. Let's do it.
Let's be honest. You've already seen something this week that made you say,
What the is this?
That's bullshit.
What the hell? Give me some more now.
something so mind-numbingly idiotic that you just want to get it off your chest.
Dumber than a second coat of paint.
Some idiot. You are really dumb. For real.
It's the dumbest thing in sports this week on the Buck Rising Show.
Sure is. It's presented by the Good Feet Stores of Nashville, now open in Clarksville. If you're dealing with issues with your hips, your feet, or your legs, the Good Feet Stores of Nashville can help get you right. They are in all manner of Middle Tennessee locations, and they've been operating here as a locally owned and operated business for over 20 years. The Good Feet Stores of Nashville, now open in Clarksville. So, the dumbest thing in sports this week. Lucas, how many times would you say that we have used the radio show as a platform to personally attack someone? Because I feel like we're pretty good about not doing that as often as I would like to.
Yeah, I mean, when there's the need to.
Yeah, we teed off on that one mouth breather that went at Jimmy Wyatt, called him a shill one time. But for the most part, it's pretty diplomatic. Except for now, because I would like to use this platform to personally attack a person who I don't know the name of. But I went to the Preds game on Saturday night. They won in overtime, 5-4. It was electric. McDonough scored with, I think it was like under 2 minutes left in the overtime to get them over the Coyotes at Bridgestone Arena. I know the Preds lost last night. We'll talk about that later maybe. But I'm at the Preds game. I'm sitting in section 116, row F. All right, so I'm relatively close. In a row in front of me is it appeared to be a family with, I don't know if it was, an older son and daughter with their mother, whatever. There is a group of people that are adults sitting in the row in front of me. And to my left, in the seats next to me, are 3 children there with their father or, grandfather or some kind of parental figure, okay? So there's 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. One of the youngest girl is so excited to be at a hockey game. She's hype, and the seats are good. So she's seeing all the action. She's seeing a little blood hit the glass every time they swing on one another or check one another, whatever the case. And she's, as I would say, she's probably somewhere between 7 and 8. She occasionally lets out a scream because she's excited about the hockey. Okay. Screaming children, not the best thing in the world, but it's a hockey game. Like, there's going to be loud noises. Hell, the Preds, every time they're trying to get you up, they play that goat just screaming, right? Loud noises. There are going to be loud noises at a hockey game. So the little girl screams, maybe once or twice in the first period, and the guy sitting in front of us, in the row in front of us, this loser in 115, whips his head around and just shoots the 7-year-old a nasty look. This person has to be older than me, so mid-30s easily. And if he's not in his mid-30s, he's aging poorly. Whips around, shoots the 7-year-old a nasty look. Okay. Whatever. I see this. I catch this out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, oh, that guy sucks. Whatever. I'm not crazy about screaming children to my left, but I'll live with it because it's a hockey game. So we get to the second period, and, little girl, very excited to be at a Preds game, still kind of, getting loud, though every time they give her the prompt to get loud, screams again. This dude turns around and kind of sternly talks to a child that is not his about, hey, you don't need to scream in my ear. You can be excited, this, that, and the other, but you don't need to scream in my ear.
Ugh.
Lucas, the little girl started to cry. Now, you know me. I don't have kids. I'm not necessarily the most child-friendly individual around, but immediately my heart breaks for this little girl who is just trying to watch a hockey game, be excited. She's there with her family. She's having a great time. So what if she lets out a yell? It's a hockey game, you loser. Get over it. I have never in my life, verbally accosted somebody at a public event or at a sporting event like that. I don't know what came over me because it's not my kid or anything like that, but I got in this dude's face. I'm yelling at him because he's trying to explain to me, no, I was just telling her not to scream. I go, I don't care. I don't care how you feel about this. You are the worst kind of person in the world that just made a 7-year-old cry because she's too excited to be at a hockey game. It's a long way of saying, I don't know who this person is. I hope if somebody with the Nashville Predators is listening to this, that they, send the little girl a Pred scarf or something like that. I don't know her name. I wish I did. She was great the rest of the game. She quit crying. Her little sister, or her older sister, got her back into it, and she was having a good time. She didn't scream the rest of the way. Bleep that mother bleeper. I don't know who was sitting in section 115. Row, what comes before F, Lucas?
E.
Row 115, row E. Whoever you are, I hope the rest of your weekend sucked. I hope you're alone on Valentine's Day, you miserable, miserable person, for making that 7-year-old cry.
Nothing worse than the fan that is upset at other fans for having fun at a game.
Like
that is
suck.
just the worst type of human. I mean, Robert was complaining about this at the Ravens game at the AFC Championship, like Ravens fans telling other Ravens fans that were in front of them to sit down because they're trying to watch the game. It's like, no, go home. It's the AFC Championship. It's a Super Bowl on the line. If you can't come here and stand up to watch, go home. Same deal, same concept. What are we doing?
Screaming is annoying. Screaming children are annoying. I will grant you that. You let the little girl enjoy the hockey game.
Yeah.
You bleep hole.
That's gross.
All right, that's my dumbest thing.
That's one of the worst things I've ever heard.
The floor is yours.
Well, yours is better than mine, but mine's Buzz Williams, Texas A&M head basketball coach. Look, Tennessee was terrible on Saturday, and if this technical foul, which should have been a technical foul, had been called, would have made no difference in the game. Tennessee would have lost in College Station. But Buzz Williams, a sequence in the second half where he's trying to call a timeout. A&M has just scored. Tennessee's inbounding the ball. They're getting ready to come down, run their offense. And Buzz Williams runs out into the middle of the court, waving both hands in the air, trying to call a timeout. I have never seen this before once in my life at any level of basketball. He tried to call the timeout on the sideline. Official didn't see it, fine. But he ran onto the floor with Tennessee and Texas A&M players running by him in transition, waving his arms frantically, screaming timeout. Officials granted him a timeout, and the game went on as usual. Rick Barnes was furious about it. Rick Barnes has talked about it since, said he talked to the SEC's head of officiating about it, and he said he told Tobe Awaka, next time that happens, just run through him. Yeah. Rick Barnes said that. I'm going to start coaching my guy because Tobe kind of he's turning as he's running down the floor and sees A&M's head coach standing right there and has to do like a spin move to avoid him. And Rick said, I told Tobe, run right through him. That's your area, not his. What is it with Texas A&M coaches being on the field or court of play during a play in the game?
Well, Jimbo, I get it. He's distracted. He doesn't know where he is. He's distracted by the giant notebook in front of his face.
Totally discombobulated. But A&M deserved to beat Tennessee on Saturday without question. But Buzz Williams not getting a technical foul for running out onto the floor mid-play is my dumbest thing in sports.
Trash. 615-737-1045. Let's see who wants the Bonnaroo tickets. Let us start with Andy up first.
Am I on?
You are.
Hey, what's going on, Lucas? My dumbest thing in sports has got to be Buck Rising's mustache. Because if you guys ain't watching on Zone TV, this dude looks like he just missed a big old spot, just smeared old Reese cup on his upper lip. Now, listen, if I was going to have to look at somebody's mustache, I'd want to look at Lucas with a mustache. That would be a handsome Italian man. Or, better yet, you could get, what's that fella's name? God, he's so handsome and sounds so articulate. Bert. You should get Bert a mustache. God, that fella's so funny, man. But that's my dumbest thing in sports. It's Buck Rising. Did I win the tickets?
Robert. Do you have anything to say for yourself?
This is Andy in Antioch.
No. Nobody believes that. Robert.
Did I win the tickets?
Well, no, because I don't want to go to Bonnaroo with you again, and you're just jealous because you wanted to do a mustache too, and I wouldn't let you.
What do you mean you wouldn't let him?
I wouldn't let him. I told him no. You're not mimicking my mustache. Also, why are you calling in? Just come in here, you idiot. Lucas, can you grow a mustache?
Sounds like he could stand on.
I'm done with it.
Oh, no. Andy in Antioch. Andy in Antioch, call back.
I don't want to go to Bonnaroo with Bert again.
Now, the best mustache I've ever had is the one that Bert drew on me with the Sharpie when you were doing the hot chip challenge. That's about as good of a mustache as I can come up with.
It is one of my favorite pictures. I delete everything on my phone because it's all just, press conferences and sad boy locker room interviews after the Titans have lost on the road or something like that. The only picture that I save is the one of you looking like an unhinged. You want to talk about bad Bond villains? You look ridiculous with that Sharpie-drawn handlebar mustache, delighting in my physical pain while I ate the hot chip. Do you know the hot chip killed somebody recently?
I saw that.
I mean, it would have been great for ratings if I'd have died on air, but, we would have had, you'd have had all kinds of problems with corporate lawyers after that in my absence, which I know would have driven you insane. But, yeah, the hot chip challenge. All right.
Andy and Antioch, leader in the clubhouse.
Robert where does Bert live? We should probably send people to his home. I would, but Cheyenne.
Hermitage.
Hermitage? Okay. Austin is next. Oh, I can hear myself on the radio.
Oh, hate to see
Yeah,
it.
that's a tough one.
Move on.
David next.
Hello, I'm on here.
You sure are.
Man, the dumbest thing I've seen this week in sports gotta be Draymond Green going crazy on what's his name, Yusuf Nurkic.
Nurkic, yes.
On his podcast. That man sound hurt. I mean, like he sounded emotional. He was going crazy. Like, I mean, you could tell he really felt some way about that. Like, that's that. I think his best action would have been to not respond, because I didn't even know that Nurkic said something about him until. So that's my dumbest thing, because he went crazy on his podcast.
Do you I appreciate the call, David? Thank you for it. Do you know what he's talking about? Draymond Green called Nurkic and Kevin Durant cowardly because Nurkic bodied Draymond, because Nurkic is a lot bigger than Draymond, and Draymond I don't think is used to getting bodied by anybody that he can't kick in the groin. So, I guess he was blowing off some steam on the podcast after the fact. I mean, I would probably put it, he called him a softie, Nurkic, all this different stuff. It's just Draymond being Draymond, and he has a podcast. This is why he has a podcast. So I agree. He did sound a bit butthurt about it afterwards, but that's because, he's got gray in his beard and he's getting sunned by people like Yusuf Nurkic at this stage of his career. All right, let's squeeze one more in here for the opportunity to win some tickets to Bonnaroo. Is this Brian or Byron? Is that what that says?
Brian.
Brian is next. Uh-oh. Brian.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hey, buddy.
Hey, so my dumbest thing in sports, and I love Will Compton, but he tweeted, end quote, NFL is basically the WWE now. All scripted, fixed. They pick who they want to win. It's all for entertainment, and honestly, I don't even know why I watch and care so much. It's all fake. That right there is the dumbest thing in sports. I mean, I'm sorry. You put a lot of money on the San Francisco 49ers to win. It's Patrick Mahomes, man. You got to go with him anytime in the playoffs. That's my dumbest thing in sports. Thank you.
Hang on. He did lose $5,000 on the Niners. I talked to him yesterday about this. He was trolling, right? He was doing that on purpose to get aggregated the way that he did and was successful in it.
Well, good for him. But that's what he tweeted. So. And it's going viral. Like, it's all over the place now.
He did it on purpose to bother people like you.
well, I made it to CNN, so he did a good job, man.
I know. Look, he texted. What did he text me yesterday about going at Chiefs fans? Because obviously Compton played for the Raiders, and I'll make it short here. See if I can find it. But he said, Missouri is at the top of the charts for STDs, lowest education, and higher COVID rate. Easy group to stir up. You gotcha. All right. Who are we giving the tickets to? I honestly had the best, dumbest thing in sports this week.
Yeah, but you don't get the tickets.
Well, I'm going.
If we're not giving them to Andy and Antioch, let's give them to David for the Draymond Green going at Nurkic and KD on his podcast.
We will do that. So we will have another opportunity for you to win Bonnaroo tickets. The next opportunity will be Friday at 11:45 a.m. Central Time when we do a little bit of Friday Fire. Like I said, we got cool things going with Bonnaroo this summer. This is a part of it. We're excited for what we have planned at the farm when that gets underway in June. And if you did not win the tickets or you don't get an opportunity to win tickets from us, you can still get your single-day passes, your multi-day passes, your 4-day passes, and parking at Bonnaroo.com. Coming up next, we are going to talk about the level of trust in Rand Carthon, a column in the Tennessean that went out over the weekend that has a lot of people hot. Tell you about it next. All right, congratulations to David. He's going to Bonnaroo. He'll be out there with us. What are you most excited to see at Bonnaroo, Lucas?
Ooh, that's always the chili peppers.
Always the chili peppers.
Yeah, Jason Isbell, always good. Cage the Elephant, I mean, can't miss.
Well, there will be a lot of good times had in Manchester this summer. We hope that you guys are out there to hang out with us. We'll tell you more about what we've got planned later on. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Okay, so coaching staff retention. Or I'm sorry, not coaching staff retention. We're going to talk about that a little later. There was a column in the Tennessean 5 days ago. Did you see it when it went out? Because I didn't have it come across my timeline until this morning because I guess a bunch of new people found it.
Yeah, I read it this morning.
It's from Gentry Estes of the Tennessean. The Tennessee Titans sure are trying hard to make you like Ran Carthon. So this, if you haven't used all of your free articles yet on the Tennessean, it's available to you. If not, then it's behind a paywall. But this is how it leads. The new Tennessee Titans front office launched a PR campaign in the past week. By that, I mean they sat down and gave in-house interviews for the Titans to promote on their platforms rather than to independent media covering the team. An important distinction. I'd compare it to politicians who only speak to media outlets on their side of the aisle. Thus, they can stick to comfortable talking points without being challenged by tough questions. They decide what they want you to hear. When Titans general manager Ran Carthon and newly promoted president of football operations Chad Brinker each spoke to the official Titans podcast, they wanted you to hear how magnificent things are since Mike Vrabel was fired. It goes on to detail, and we talked about the Brinker and Ran interviews on the OTP last week. And, I just full disclosure, I had asked for Ran to be on the radio show when everybody else was having Callahan on just to do something different because I didn't want to do like the fourth Brian Callahan interview in a row that week. And what I was told was, hey, we're focused on the coaching thing right now. Once we get more into the personnel side of things, then we'll make Ran available. And I'm not mad at the Titans for putting him on their platforms first. That's absolutely what they should be doing. That's just good business. Now, he goes on to kind of draw this connection, Gentry does, in the Tennessean column, on why the way that the Titans are PR, let me call it PR coddling Ran a little bit, why it should kind of start to breed a little bit of distrust in the new general manager. Is that how you read it too? That because he's not being put in positions to have to answer these questions, or he's just out there to answer Amy's questions, or doesn't really give detail, as Gentry says, but speaks more in generalities. He defers from me to we, even though it is his decision. He is the general manager. He has final say, this, that, and the other. And Gentry's whole thing is, you don't want a organization as a fan base that is not giving you the best opportunity to understand how this thing is run. Am I mischaracterizing anything that Gentry put in there?
Yeah, I mean, the point of it, the title of it was the Titans want you to know Ran Carthon is a great guy, right? That Ran Carthon is sunshine and rainbows.
No. The Titans are selling you Ran Carthon as sunshine and rainbows is what this column is.
Yeah. What's the difference between that and what I just said?
The difference is the Titans want you to know that Ran Carthon is a good guy.
Yes, that's also what I just said.
Sure, that's what you said. What I said is the Titans are selling you Ran Carthon as a good guy, which may still be true. It's just that there has been an overt PR push in the absence of Vrabel and the mess that they made of it last year to say, hey, this is our guy. You're going to love our guy. He's the guy. Let everybody in the world tell you how he's the guy. And by the way, they should. They're a mess. They're a terrible football team. Sell me something that's positive if I'm a fan. Gentry, I in principle, let me say this, okay? Gentry picked a losing position right out of the gate. You cannot tell fans how to think about a general manager that they have zero bad vibes about, that they have really not a ton of experience with, because he's only talked, once since the offseason began.
Since the start of last season, he has only spoken once, and it was when Vrabel was fired.
Right. So training camp, opening of training camp last year, Mike Vrabel fired press conference, didn't take questions at Brian Callahan's introductory press conference, and then, Gentry, I'm sure, requested to speak with Rand, as I requested to have Rand on the radio show, and we were probably told the same thing. I haven't talked to Gentry about this, but we were probably told the same thing. Hey, here's Callahan, but when we get to the personnel side of things, then we'll start making Rand more available. Nobody cares that Rand Carthon isn't talking to the local newspaper columnist or the local midday sports talk host. They just care that he's their GM and he's on their favorite team's podcast, and they want to listen to him. I'm not saying that Gentry doesn't have a point. I also think that they should be put, Amy, Rand, Callahan, in unsanitized situations for us to get try and get a more honest and transparent answer, just because they're having to think on their feet while we all hurl questions at their heads.
I want to put it to a poll. Do you care that Rand Carthon is not consistently available to the media?
No.
Because I don't think fans give a damn.
Fans don't give a bleep.
Yeah.
You can't, but the position that Gentry is taking is, here's why you should, but leading with, hey, the Titans gave them to their guys, but they won't give them to us. Man, nobody gives a damn about that. And I'm saying this is a media guy. Like, I'm reading this, and I'm saying, I see where Gentry is going, and like I said, I haven't talked to him yet today. I'll see him in an hour at the press
Gentry
conference.
does a great job, by the way. Gentry covers every team in this town and does it really well.
Well, that's not how he's being portrayed on the internet, because what he did is he basically told Titans fans, hey, here's how you're going to think about, or here's how you should be thinking about your new general manager. And it's not in the most glowing terms, because there's not a ton that we know about how good or bad this guy actually is at his job yet. Rand Carthon hasn't done a great job as Titans general manager, but he hasn't done a bad one yet. He hasn't been allowed to. It's not been a part of his job responsibilities until 3 weeks ago? A month ago? So that people are trying to make these declarative statements on Rand, it's weird. I want to talk to Rand so I can ask him, hey, has it been weird how pointed a lot of this criticism has been for you over the course of the last calendar year? Because he said, at Vrabel's press conference, he needed to do a better job connecting with the fans via the media, but he doesn't need to do it through us. They have a damn team podcast. They have Mike Keith. They have Jimmy Wyatt. They can control the message however they want to. Now, I personally don't agree with that being the primary approach, but that doesn't matter. That's the best way to do it. That's what the fans want. I'm not saying that you should be given everything that you want all of the time, but I'm sure as hell not going to tell you how to think, especially when I don't know how to think about the guy.
It's like the vision thing after they fired Vrabel. The Titans' vision, or vision this, or vision that, and the question about, okay, well, what is the vision? And there was this uproar, largely from local media, about, you're not even going to tell us what this vision is, this nebulous vision. That's the reason why you fired a coach, why you're changing the front office structure. We don't get to know what it is. And that lasted for all of about 2 weeks before they hired Brian Callahan, and we get a giant press release about the front office structure and who reports to who and the different job descriptions. And suddenly nobody's complaining anymore about the Titans not telling anybody what their vision is, when in reality, I don't think fans gave a damn at any point about the Titans not sitting there at that presser after Vrabel was fired and giving you every bullet point of what their vision is for the future of the franchise.
Well, no, you and I went back and forth about this, right? Because I said I think Titans fans want to know whether Chad Brinker is actually over Rand Carthon or not. The answer to that question is they're both independent, even though one's a president and the Rand is a VP to Brinker's president of football operations. They don't answer to either one of each other. They answer to Amy directly. So my point was, I would like to know what the hierarchy here actually is if one's a president, but technically he's supposed to be below the general manager, even though he's got a title. Like, it was just kind of a confusing thing to me. And your thing was, well, as long as it gets done, people don't care. And then we started to get into some other stuff, and then you came back at me and said, well, of course people care about all the fine details on this. And I'm kind of having a hard time balancing. What I know is that, full stop, fans do not care about local media bitching. They don't care. Bitching about access, right? If your football team's bad and you turn on the radio show, and I've just come back from Miami or Kansas City or wherever I've been for a Titans game, and I'm ripping the Titans because they've played terribly and their offensive line is garbage and all these different things. They're wasting Derrick Henry, whatever. That's a different kind of venting, right? That's reaction. That's some analysis. That's a different version of, he won't talk to me. Or he won't talk to me yet.
I do wonder about the overlap between Rand and Brinker's responsibilities as it pertains to personnel.
Yes.
Right? Because Brinker has a significant hand in scouting. Brinker told the Official Titans podcast when talking about his new role that, he's not focusing on the 7th round pick guys, right? He's not going to the MAC schools trying to find diamonds in the rough. So I am curious about that overlap of responsibility when it comes to personnel. But at the end of the day, it's just about who you're going to go get, who you're going to pick, who's going to end up a Tennessee Titan after the upcoming draft, after the upcoming spell of free agency. Ultimately, if those players come in and those players are good and they produce, nobody is going to care about the office dynamics at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park.
Agreed.
And it's the same thing with Rand Carthon. Rand Carthon cannot do a presser from now until, what's today? Oh, it's Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2025.
Oh, my God, it is Valentine's Day.
And fans will not give a damn if the 2024 NFL draft class shows something in their rookie year. If Will Levis takes a leap in his second year, Tyjae Spears takes another step within the offense. They make the right moves with all this money in free agency. Why do we need to talk to Rand? We'll just watch the games. Like, fans will not care.
Yeah.
Now, when things start to go wrong, then sure. Then maybe people will start to pound on the desk. But right now, that's not the case. Right now, it's just, I don't care what you tell me at a podium.
Lonzo Wright, and you can interact on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You can call in if you want to, 615-737-1045. We'll take your phone calls here in just a second. Lonzo says, local media feels entitled. Oh, for sure. Here I am, sitting in front of you or speaking to you as the voice in your head in some form or fashion. Yes, I am a person who feels entitled. I do feel entitled to speak to the necessary parties on a more regular basis. I am never going to advocate for less access. I am also cognizant that this is the norm. John Robinson was out in front of us all the time in ways that he probably did not need to be. We got used to speaking to John. I mean, it probably wasn't every month, but it was a couple of times a football season, a couple of times during the season, whether they made personnel decisions or something like that. John read all of his headlines, so he was very cognizant of what all of us were saying or writing or reading or producing about him and the Titans' decisions at that point. And he was out there regularly available, whether it was Zoom, whether it was in person, whether you were talking to him on the sidelines before a game like that. John was way, way more out there. That's not normal. There is nothing about the NFL's media rights rules that dictates that the general manager has to talk to you a bunch. So that it's different and that it's less has local media, including myself, less than enchanted with the fact that we're getting less, even though that is very much the norm. Lucas, you remember when all those teams came here, all those different teams have come here for joint training camp practices over the course of the last couple of years? Our buddy Moose, the camera guy from New England, the Patriots camera guy, he was shocked that they were letting Titans media film an entire training camp practice just to be out there, have given a greater level of access than the vast majority of NFL franchises. I'm still going to say I would like more than less. I'm not advocating for them to do the league minimum the way that some of these franchises do. I'm very grateful that they don't. I'm grateful that they haven't really pared it down too much that way. But I'm also, you and I are of a different generation. Meaning Lucas and I. Teams don't need us anymore to get to the customer. You don't need the local newspaper. You need certain elements of media, whether it's television broadcast rights or obviously the Zone carries the Titans and Vols games or stuff like that. But these people don't need your platform anymore to get out the messages that they want to. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't fight back against that because I don't think it should be that narrow-minded in coverage. I think that's a bad thing. But I'm very cognizant that if they decide to put Ran on their team podcast instead of on the radio show because it makes more sense for them, that I'm going to have to, shrug my shoulders and be like, yeah, I get it. I hope I get to do a more, I don't know, the kind of interview that we would do with him at some point, but I get why they put him on the team podcast first. This is such media minutia that you're just going to lose this fight over and over and over again, no matter how passionate or you are about providing the best possible coverage, because I do think more access for media provides the best possible coverage. But is the team interested in the best possible coverage, or are they interested in the most favorable kind of coverage? And of course they're going to answer the most favorable kind of coverage every time. Because what happens when you don't give media what they want? They do things like write a column about, hey, here's how fans should think about the new GM, when none of us really know how to think about the guy just yet because he hasn't done the job for long enough for us to have a true formulated opinion about it. Anyway. 615-737-1045 is the number. Get to your phone calls on this coming up next. We'll also talk about one of the new Brian Callahan hires that is making his third return in a coaching capacity to the state of Tennessee. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. 615-737-1045. You can jump in here in just a second. Don't forget, speaking of people, speaking of the media, Brian Callahan, Denard Wilson, Nick Holtz, they're all going to be available at the podium at 12:30. I'm going to slide on down there a little early. Lucas is going to guide you in and out of the press conferences. They're probably going to bleed a little into Blaine and Mickey, so you'll have that starting at 12:30. Chiefs Super Bowl parade ongoing right now, it seems. Somebody wearing a teddy bear hat. That looks concerning. A little bit of cosplay out there. Kansas City in February, probably not the most comfortable climate for a victory parade.
Oh, they're plenty happy out there today.
Yeah, probably a lot of liquid courage.
Speaking of Steve Spagnuolo, contract extension in Kansas City.
I saw Tyreek Hill tweeting about why isn't Spags getting job requests, like head coaching job requests. I just don't know that he wants to be a head coach again. 615-737-1045. Let's start with Titans Bill.
How you doing, Buck?
Good, buddy.
I'm doing great. I'm calling you from beautiful Knoxville, Tennessee, really North Knox County.
Love it.
And I'm very excited about the new staff that both Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan hired, especially of the other new coaches, like Tracy Rocker, who used to be a head coach, who used to be an assistant coach here at UT.
Yes.
And speaking of UT, I was very excited that they hired that Bo Hardegree, who's also a VFL.
Yes, he was at Tennessee at the same time as Ramon Foster, as a matter of fact.
Was he a starting quarterback? I'm confused here. Or was he a backup to Eric Ainge? I know he played from 2003 to 2006. But was he a backup?
Yes, he was a backup. He was a backup quarterback.
He didn't record any stats when at Tennessee. Eric Ainge was there. Jonathan Crompton, his backup for a while.
I think it's like Callahan at UCLA, like a walk-on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think he was a scholarship player.
Excuse me. I shouldn't have said walk-on, but just kind of like, I don't want to say happy to be
it
there.
Was a reserve quarterback at Tennessee.
Reserve quarterback.
Yes.
Bam in Nashville is next.
Yo, what's up, bro?
What up?
Man, I was touching on the whole Rand situation. Me personally, as a fan, I don't really care what him addressing the media like that. I care about his performance and how he's bringing these players in or retaining players or, that's his job. I don't need him talking to us 24/7 because I need him making the best decisions he going to make. So when we get to September in Nissan Stadium, we actually going to be a competitive team this year. Like that's like clickbait to me. Like, why am I worried about what Rand is saying if it's not of essence or importance all the time? You know what I'm saying? That's just kind of like, he's supposed to be making his team a competing team. I don't care about what he had, having press conferences and stuff like that. If you see him in Green Hills Mall, say what's up and keep it moving. But nah, man, that's people just say stuff just to be saying it, man. Anyway, hope y'all good, man.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. By the way, I didn't get a chance to say thank you to Bam for having us out at the
Bourbon Street Blues and Boogie Bar.
Okay, say it again.
Bourbon Street Blues and Boogie Bar.
Why are you saying it so fast? Just because you can?
It's a fun little alliteration.
Okay.
But yeah, Bam and his band.
He hooked it up, and they were awesome.
Crushed.
They were awesome. That was so much fun. We really appreciate Bam having us out.
It is such a weird thing with Carthon, though, that it's been over a calendar year now that he's the Titans general manager, and nobody really has a clue, right, on what to think, on how it's the grade. Like, if you were to ask fans, media, whoever, to grade Rand Carthon's performance over the last year, I don't know that anybody would be very convicted in their answer.
Brother, if you ask me to do that right now, I'm giving you an incomplete. Incomplete. I legitimately, Lucas, don't know what to do with him other than I've enjoyed talking to him in the small sample sizes that we've done it professionally. Obviously, I see Rand a lot on the road at practices and stuff like that when I've got time to be out there and stuff. I always have enjoyed just talking to Rand. He's a very personable guy. Beyond that, I don't know how much of his job he was allowed to do last year. It doesn't sound like a whole lot. So I'm not I'm not in on him. I'm not out on him. I'm just kind of like, okay, well, let's see what you got. And this is the most important offseason that they've had in the better part of a decade. And if they come out of this without, really resounding wins across the board, because it's not just offensive line, as we talked about earlier in the show. It's the defensive line. It's the defensive backs. It's the wide receivers. It's the coaching staff. Like, they have to come out of this offseason nailing, not just like getting some good players here and there. Or maybe you have a 6-rounder that misses, stuff like that. No, you got to nail this draft, this free agency period, because your team is down tremendous. And now it's on you, my guy. Mike Vrabel's not here to domineer the situation anymore, and you can pin everything that you want on Vrabel, and he's not here to stick up for himself anymore. But any kind of judgment, good or bad, on Rand Carthon is a misplaced one, because you have no idea. Now, I do acknowledge that is weird. That is a weird situation. It's a different situation from the one that I've become accustomed to covering. But that's fine. We'll figure it out. I'm not so desperate to fill, and I'm not accusing Gentry or anybody else who's been overtly critical of Rand, because I'm sure we all hear stuff about the inner workings and the inner dysfunction and stuff like that. Okay, whatever. Use it as context. But until there's quantifiable evidence of their decision-making, directly their decision-making, Rand's direct decision-making, having a negative impact on the team. I don't know how stuff like that. We come back to the Greg Bedard thing a lot, where and I want to make sure, Lucas, that I phrase it correctly. Job performance in San Francisco was something that Greg Bedard questioned about Rand Carthon. Not work ethic, but just general job performance. It was a generality used. That is a very, very serious accusation to lob at somebody without specific examples. Stuff like that has been all over the place in the last year, and I don't get it. For as popular a person as Rand Carthon seems to be in football circles, there are a lot of people who seem to want to try and pick at it or take shots unnecessarily or dig up stuff where there's not anything to dig up yet. That's my thing. There may be. We're not there yet. It's barely started. He just got a promotion to be the actual general manager this offseason, last month. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. We will talk about the coaching staff retention. 11 people from Mike Vrabel's staff kept under Brian Callahan. We'll talk about who they are and why that matters next.
It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The Tennessee Titans formally announced several additions to Brian Callahan's coaching staff on Tuesday, including longtime NFL offensive line coach Bill Callahan, veteran wide receivers coach Tyke Tolbert, running backs coach Randy Jordan, who spent the last decade coaching the position in Washington, and former Raiders assistant Bo Hardigree, a Tennessee native and former Tennessee quarterback, will coach quarterbacks. On defense, former Oilers and Titans DB Steven Jackson will coach the secondary. Tracy Rocker is the new defensive line coach. He held that post with the Titans from 2011 to 2013 and with the Vols from 2017 to 2019. Titans have yet to announce a special teams coach. They will introduce offensive coordinator Nick Holtz and defensive coordinator Denard Wilson in a press conference today beginning at 12:30. You can hear it live right here on The Zone. Tonight, Tennessee basketball travels to Arkansas. It's an 8 p.m. tip-off at Bud Walton Arena. You can hear the Vol Network call right here on The Zone. And Belmont hosts Southern Illinois at the Curb Center, a 6:30 tip-off. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What's happening? Noon hour is here. Brian Callahan, Denard Wilson, and Nick Holtz, the new Titans head coach and two new coordinators. They'll speak at 12:30. Lucas is going to take the reins here in about 10 minutes from now. I'm going to buzz on down to the press conference because I don't know the new guys, and I'd like to get to know them a little better since we're covering a new coaching staff. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. 615-737-1045 is the number. You can jump in as you like, so we'll get right into it. The more full version of the staff was announced yesterday. They still don't have a special teams coordinator, still filling out a variety of assistant position coach roles and things like that, support staff kind of stuff. But we do have the bulk of the Titans staff now officially announced. We talked about the guys that they are bringing in that are new, but they have a fair amount of retention. So, just to kind of revisit, this is courtesy of the press release. The staff also includes coaches who were on the staff last year, some in new roles. Chris Harris, Justin Outen, who's moving positions from running backs to tight ends, Anthony Levine Sr., Clint McMillan, Lori Locust, Kylan Butler, Matt Jones, Luke Stocker, Titans legend, and from the strength and conditioning staff, Brian Bell, Tyler Rouse, and Haley Roberts. Were you surprised by the spots that they did retain people? And in particular, were you surprised that they didn't keep the head of strength and conditioning, Frank Perano, who was the head of strength and conditioning staff, here into Mike Vrabel, the former Boston College strength coach. He goes to the Giants, where he joins Shane Bowen and Tim Kelly and a handful of other Titans cast-offs in the East Rutherford, New Jersey area. 3 members of the strength and conditioning staff, though, is, I don't want to say a red flag, but it does raise, at least it raises eyebrows of Titans fans for obvious reasons, because what have the Titans famously been over the course of the last 3 seasons? They've been the walking wounded. They have had a tremendous amount of injury. They have the 30th most games lost due to injury in the NFL in that span, and that one of the biggest criticisms, more so, Lucas, I would argue, even than Mike Vrabel criticism, has been the criticism of the strength and conditioning staff. What's going on here? Why does this keep happening? How does it happen back-to-back years the way that 2021 and 2022 nearly did, with one record-setting and one nearly record-setting? The new strength coach will vet them, says Tighten Up Tony. Well, they haven't hired a new head of strength and conditioning yet. This is at least they haven't named a new head of strength and conditioning yet. Brian Bell, Tyler Rouse, and Haley Roberts were all on the staff but they are not specifically designated as the head of strength and conditioning program for the Tennessee Titans.
But that's the asterisk that I would have. Are they going to give a new head strength and conditioning coach full autonomy to put his staff together, or are they telling him, these are your three guys? You're retaining these guys.
No, these are retained. These are people that are staying.
I understand that they're in the press release, but you think it's impossible that they hire a new strength and conditioning
Not
coach
impossible,
and he
but
comes
highly
in and
unlikely.
makes changes?
Not in year one. Not after you have told these people, no, you're keeping your jobs here. Look, they wouldn't be in a press release if they weren't going to be on the staff this year. They wouldn't do that. Is there the possibility of something happening at some point throughout the course of the season? Sure. I mean, generally, you could say that about anything. But you don't announce that we are retaining these people. You don't tell those people that they are being retained just to turn around and hire their new boss for their new boss to come in and be like, all right, hit the bricks. Is there any other one that jumps to mind? So Chris Harris is an interesting one here. I did not, talking to a lot of players, and, we'll see how this goes. I don't know that Chris Harris was necessarily one of the more impressive people that they brought in, despite how highly sought after he was, at least in talking to people. Now, we talk to the assistant coaches, I think maybe once a month, twice a month during the season and throughout the course of the training camp and stuff like that. And, always I felt like I learned things from Chris Harris when we asked him various questions. I thought that he gave thoughtful responses to a lot of this. I can't speak to how he was in a meeting room and things like that, but I was curious to hear that feedback because he seemed to be pretty sought after last offseason. Like, it was a big win for the Tennessee Titans to get Chris Harris last year, if you remember. So whether that's a Vrabel is telling me that this is the way that we're going to play off on 3rd and 6 as corners or something like that, or Chris Harris, their interesting decisions on when they allow their corners to press or if they let the corners make up their own minds to press and stuff like that, just kind of weird stuff. He was one that I was surprised to not see get another job elsewhere, but that he interviewed at a variety of different places for DC jobs and didn't get it. Maybe it shouldn't surprise me. I don't know.
I see this where there's a hot commodity that interviews at certain jobs and then the next offseason it just kind of fizzles and it doesn't happen for him. I mean, Eric Bieniemy's been talked about like this for years.
No, but he didn't fizzle. Like, he was getting jobs. Eric Bieniemy went from being the most talked about assistant coach anywhere to, all right, you're out for I'm blanking, Cliff Kingsbury. For Cliff Kingsbury, because Cliff is some kind of, it's not like Cliff is any kind of beacon of success at the NFL level, right?
Yeah, that it's weird
but
the way Cliff Kingsbury's talked about. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are some people that would allege there are other things going on there, and I don't necessarily blame them for something like that. But there's also a difference in approach between how Cliff Kingsbury coaches and how Eric Bieniemy is regarded to coach players. A more intense version, a very taskmaster type approach. This is a lot of retention. If you'd have told me that 11 people from Mike Vrabel's staff in some form or fashion would still be here under Brian Callahan, I think I would have been surprised, especially as many on the strength and conditioning staff. Not that they are Frank Pirano or that they can't do better than Frank Pirano did or that they can't hire a new one. Tighten Up Tony says Frank Pirano was part of the head coach search apparently. Now he's fired. No, that's Todd Torricelli. Todd Torricelli is the head trainer. Those are two different roles. So Todd is who was mentioned at the introductory press conference for Callahan by Carthon as being a part of the coaching search. 615-737-1045 is the number. Bradley in Spring Hill is next.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Just really want to take a quick moment just to talk about Rand Carthon, just his job that he's done. I want to say at one point during the year, there was $100 million sitting on the bench or not on the team. And we were still paying for Julio Jones. In that, he also signed Jeffrey Simmons. He signs DeAndre Hopkins. I think every guy he drafted played this year and participated pretty well. I don't know what fans want out of the guy, if he needs to be a great in front of the media. But I know he had a few botched media, moments. But outside of that, if the guy's out to buy the groceries and the coach is there to cook, he's buying good groceries. and he's taking care of business. So I'm lost on where a lot of it's coming from. I hear it on a lot of radio stations where people are just over him, and I don't know what people want. Do you want a guy that's good at interviewing like John Robinson and has horrible drafts, or guys that has good drafts and may not be great behind the mics? That's all I had to say.
I appreciate the call. Listen, Bradley, it's not fans don't seem to have a problem with Rand Carthon as far as my experience goes. It seems to be a very media-driven thing, and that's speaking as somebody who works in media, who covers this team. I find it bizarre too, because the quantifiable examples of whatever bad quality of Rand Carthon that is being promoted out there, I've not been presented with any that have been reported concretely as fact. So it's hard for me to jump to those kind of judgments. Anyway, we're going to break early. Lucas is going to take over. I'm running down to St. Thomas Sports Park. You're going to hear from Brian Callahan, Denard Wilson, Nick Holtz at a press conference. We're going to carry it live for you. I'm going to buzz down there. You may hear me ask a couple of questions. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is a great place for you to get treatment for erectile dysfunction if you have been dealing with it lately. Don't freak out if you are. A lot of dudes do. 50% of guys, as a matter of fact, deal with ED at some point in their life. It's okay. Don't get negative. Don't feel like there's any kind of stigma associated with it. Just go get the best help possible at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. They have a urologist and providers that have been treating patients like you for a decade, and they are here to serve you because that's all they do. That's their bread and butter. ED treatments and weight loss treatments that are at the Tennessee Men's Clinic can truly change your life. So go and visit them at one of their 2 locations, downtown Nashville or Cool Springs. It is very simple to get a same-day or next-day appointment when you book online or over the phone. Find out more about how they can help you fight ED at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com.
Welcome back. 615-737-1045. That's the number. I'm Lucas Panzica. Buck headed to Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park as the Titans will officially introduce offensive coordinator Nick Holtz, defensive coordinator Denard Wilson, head coach Brian Callahan will be in attendance. And we will carry that presser for you live starting here in about 9 minutes on 104.5 The Zone. Joseph Bonanno, otherwise known as Joey Bananas of Blaine and Mickey, our producer, Mickey Ryan, is in studio now as well. A very different tone to the rest of this show on this Wednesday. So we put it out to a poll, and I don't know that we're going to have time to get to the polls at the end of the show with the press conference, Wilson, Holtz, maybe Callahan answering questions. So if we don't, I do want to get to these because we put it to a poll this morning and asked you the biggest pros and the biggest cons of the Titans coaching staff based on what we know about it, the press release that was sent out yesterday from Titans PR. Mickey Ryan is in studio, and I would love to get your perspective on this, Mickey, because the more I look over this press release and I look over the experience and accolades listed under the blurb for Bill Callahan and Tyke Tolbert and Randy Jordan and Steven Jackson, the former Titans defensive back, the more I notice two things. One, with the coordinators, is the obvious, right? First-time play caller on both sides. First-time play call on offense with their head coach, Brian Callahan. His offensive coordinator, Nick Holtz, has never called plays. And on defense with Denard Wilson, who has also never been the primary play caller, a rising star in the business on the defensive side, but has never had the headset for final say on game day. And that has been listed for a lot of people as the biggest con, the thing they're most worried about this Titans coaching staff. But the other thing is, when you look up and down the assistants, it feels very strategic here, Mickey, because Bill Callahan, Tyke Tolbert, Bo Hardigree, really the only exception, but Tracy Rocker, Steven Jackson have been coaching in the NFL for multiple decades. They loaded up on experience across the board with the assistant coaching staff, with the exception of a very young Bo Hardigree. But that's interesting because the three people that are going to spend by far the most amount of time with the most important asset on this football team, quarterback Will Levis, have arguably the least amount of experience doing that on this coaching staff. Has that stuck out to you at all as you've gone through what the Titans have done filling out Brian Callahan's staff?
It's interesting anytime somebody puts together a staff because it's almost like watching them put together a puzzle, and none of us even know what the pieces are. So we just know there's a table, right? Like in your kitchen table, did your family ever have the big puzzle they put together? Your grandmother or your aunt and uncle, somebody in everybody's family puts together puzzles. And you can always dump them all out of the box, and you can look at the box and think, okay, I got to make this look like that. When a new coach builds a staff, you don't even know what the box looks like, what the final picture looks like. You just know he's going to put together a puzzle. So Blaine and I talked about this a lot, and I said, I love a really old, grizzled offensive line coach. I want the crustiest, oldest offensive line coach. And I'm crusty and old myself, so I'm not taking a shot at anybody. I also want a crusty, old defensive line coach. And one of the things that stuck out to me most in this was people get really upset when you hire retreads.
Yeah.
This dude's failed 3 times, and he's getting another chance. But then when you're like, okay, we're going to give a bunch of new guys a chance. And people are like, oh, my gosh, none of these guys know anything. So there's kind of a panicometer, as my friend Ryan Vaughn, the weatherman, says either way. There's a panicometer for less experience or if you have just too many retreads. So I am a little bit nervous about that, but ultimately, as far as where Holtz is concerned, I mean, Brian Callahan hasn't called plays either, but he will be calling plays. So for Holtz, I feel good that they're connected. They went to high school with each other. I mean, just think of, who was your best friend in high school?
Just picture me calling plays on an NFL game day with that guy.
Yeah, who is it?
His name is Will.
Okay. Did he have a nickname like Scooter or the Smasher?
No
Ding
cool
Dong
nicknames.
Okay,
Just Will.
all right. You were Juke. So
yes,
Juke
I was
and
the only
Will.
one with the nickname.
So let's say that you guys are big soccer players and you got a chance one day because that was your sport and you got one day a chance to run your own club and he'd stayed in the soccer business and you'd stayed in the soccer business. You'd probably feel pretty good about the two of you melding your minds together because you'd be like, hey, I'll call all the sets and I'll handle all that. I want you upstairs because we speak the same language, right? We've been friends since we were in high school, and I want you to tell me what you're seeing to help shape what I'm going to do on the field. So Bo Hardigree, you mentioned him, not a lot of experience. by all accounts, a great pedigree. Even Holtz, a really great pedigree. And if you look at what the Raiders did offensively after he took over, things got better after they fired McDaniels. They did better under him. So I understand fans and different people being nervous, but, it's almost like if you're the hirer at your job and you hire somebody and you say, look, I'm going to hire you to run the distribution division. You just got to trust what they're doing. You trusted them enough to hire them. So now you got to trust them to do the job and get the people underneath them to do the job. It's a long answer.
You've got your veteran, rugged offensive and defensive line coaches. You've got your young hotshot play callers on both sides of the ball. And coming up next, we hear from those play callers. Nick Holtz, Denard Wilson, introduced to Titans fans, Titans media from Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. That's next on 104.5 The Zone. Titans head coach Brian Callahan is meeting with the media as they introduce offensive coordinator Nick Holtz and defensive coordinator Denard Wilson, and we go live to Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park on 104.5 The Zone.
Living together here in the building, so good to get some more energy and life in it as well. So with that, I'd like to bring up our new defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson. Come on up, man.
How you all doing? First of all, just thankful for being here. Thankful for the opportunity. It's great to be a Titan. Great to be around this organization, being around Rand, being around Brian. I can't wait to get started. We on the early phases right now, but this is a great opportunity, and I'm excited to be here. Questions?
It's harder and harder to kind of declare a base defense. I imagine you'll call base once in a while. What do you kind of envision building off of from there as a start?
Well, right now we're just going through the process. We just got here 2 days ago, really. The staff's coming together. So we're evaluating the players, evaluating the talent that's here. About football, it's not about scheme. It's about the players, right? So we have to figure out what they do well, and then we'll put the scheme around them, all right, to allow their talents to flourish. I can tell you this about the scheme, all right? And I learned this a long time ago. General George Patton said this: nobody ever defended anything successful. You're going to attack and attack some more. We're going to be attacking defense. We're going to be violent in our approach. All right, we're going to be smart. We're going to be intelligent. We're never going to compromise for competing. And that's the style of brand of football that we're going to play around here.
So you mentioned the attacking part of it, so I would imagine blitzing will be heavy. You look at your background, whether it's Bowles, Greg Williams, how much did that influence what you plan to do here?
Well, just like anything, you learn from the people that you've been around. And obviously I've been around a lot of great coordinators. So a lot of things that they do is entrenched in my being. A lot of the philosophies they've had, I believe in. So we're going to blitz, but we're going to blitz, and when we blitz, it's going to be smart. It's going to be educated. It's going to be there at the right time. It's just not going to be reckless. We're going to play coverage. We're going to play man-to-man. We're going to be multiple in everything we do, all right, in terms of our fronts, any of those things. So we'll be versatile, all right. We'll present problems to offenses, all right, on how we approach it, and, we'll go from there.
Who do you say have been your biggest influences, to get you to this point?
It's been a lot of guys. Like, you mentioned Greg Williams. He gave me my first opportunity, him and Jeff Fisher, with the Rams. I hold them at a high regard. I still communicate with both of them. Todd Bowles was outstanding to be around. Just being around Coach Harbaugh this past year. Hell of a head coach. I think he's a Hall of Fame type coach. And those guys have been big influences on me. Also, we have some guys on the staff that we have here that has also, been influencing on me. Frank Bush is a hell of a coach that we have as the linebacker coach. Tracy Rocker, I was with him in Philadelphia. He's a hell of a coach. Steve Jackson and I worked together with the Jets. Steve Jackson was my coach as an undrafted free agent, all right, in Washington. Chris Harris being around here, he brings so much energy. Respect Ben Bloom and what he did at Cleveland and the way he had those guys play. And then it was a lot of people that was already on staff, like Clint McMillan and Lori, who's here. Those people, they're great people to be around. They're going to be a great influence on me, helping me through this process.
You've been with the Ravens most recently. Mm-hmm. Their philosophy always seemed to have a knack for finding the football, creating turnovers. Mm-hmm. What's your philosophy regarding trying to get the football?
It's not going to change. We understand this. The ball travels further and faster in the air than it does the ground. So we have to play outstanding pass defense. We got to keep the ball in front of us. But within doing that, we have to attack the ball with violence. All right, the way you get takeaways in this game is population and technique, all right, and the manner in which you play. So the same philosophies they have in terms of the Ravens defense, it's going to be the same philosophy I carry. It's been the same philosophy of all the guys that you mentioned before that I work with.
As you've gone through the beginning stages of evaluating the unit you're inheriting, just kind of what stood out about the players?
Well, the guys that are here, they play hard and play physical. That's the number one thing. All right, they're tough guys. All right, they play with discipline. All right, they're physical, they're violent at the point of attack. And when you see that and the effort that they have, and you mix the coaching and the new nuances that we'll bring, we'll allow them to flourish a bit more.
you looking for in this position, and why was Denard a good fit?
Everything you guys see so far. Guys that had great knowledge of scheme and what defenses have to be nowadays in the NFL. There has to be a willingness to be multiple, to play different coverages, to play multiple fronts, to be able to mix the coverage scheme with the talent that you have, to be able to blitz when it's required to blitz, be able to play max coverage when you have to play max coverage. There's just an element of playing defense now in the NFL with the way that the passing game is and the way that these offenses are that if you lock yourself into one thing, you tend to get found out pretty quickly. And so just one of the things I always respected about the places Denard's been and the defenses he's been a part of is that ability to be flexible and adaptable to what the scheme on offense is presenting you. Meanwhile, still keeping a core fundamental approach to what is important on the defense, and as Denard has talked about it. But that's, to me, was the most important part schematically. The other part of it was the person. As you guys get to know Denard, as I've got to know Denard, is great energy, really positive, good to be around. He's a guy that I like sitting next to, and I hired a lot of the people on the staff with that in mind, is that they're guys that I want to go to work with every day, and I hope that they, as a staff, want to work together themselves. And I think that your team feels that as well. So when your staff is connected and you want to be around them, hopefully the locker room feels that as they come into the building with us. But at the end of the day, they're guys that I like being around and present a lot of positive traits, both in the schematic portion and the relationship portion, which to me are equally as important when you're building a staff.
Places. You interviewed, I think, 4 or 5 places.
Talking to Denard?
Denard, yeah. Why was this and Brian the right fit for you?
Well, it's the same thing. First of all, I've always admired the Titans organization. Followed this organization when they were in Houston. Had a lot of people that I've worked with that come from the organization. And when I got here, I was already excited about that, right? And then when I met Brian and I met I met the way he is, the way he presents himself, the way he wants this team to be connected, right? The core values in terms of what he believes in as a person, in terms of having good people around him, having friendships, and also grinding and working together. I admired that about him. I had a relationship with Rand already. When we were young coming up, Rand Callahan and he was a pro scout, and I was a young coach. And we had numerous conversations just, during those days of, hey, when we get to this point, this is how we would want to do it. And we've always been in contact and always admired each other on the way each other work. And so it was a natural fit. And I'm happy to be here. I'm learning about the organization, being here, and I'm excited to go to work.
You've had a view for your career from the back end as a defensive back coach. How much have you learned from that perspective about what needs to happen up front, and how do you now kind of to plug into the whole thing?
Right. When you work from the back to the front, it's like a puzzle at the end of the day. All the pieces fit a certain way. So, from a grand scheme standpoint, you can understand, you can look at the game from a big picture because you're looking from the outside in and from the back to the trenches. Like I say, I've been around great D-line coaches throughout the course of my career, great linebacker coach. Like I mentioned again, Frank Bush is a hell of a linebacker coach. And as a young coach, I learned a lot from those type guys to learn how to put it together. And over the years, I just got better at understanding how the puzzle fits.
I'm sorry. What makes a good defensive back in your position?
First of all, the first thing I'm gonna look at is this guy talented, and in terms of giving effort, and is he willing to compete? If he's willing to compete and he gives effort, has outstanding ball skills, can run, physical at the point of attack, violent at the point of attack, and when I say that is when the ball's in the air. You look at his attributes in terms of his foot speed, his quickness, his change of direction, right? A lot of things about DB play isn't just about their athletic ability. It's about position and leveraging their eyes. And are they willing to look at the right things on a consistent basis? So just looking at those pieces and putting it together. For me, if I see a talented player, I feel I can get the best out of them. And the more talented players we have, the more talented players we welcome.
When you look at how offenses are now, right? So many 3 receiver, et cetera. Nickel is almost base. What's your approach to how you look at DBs? Like, do you want them to be able to inside and outside, or do you plan to have guys specialize?
Well, it goes back to this. The more you can do, right? When you draft players, you don't want to peg a player in one position. The more you can do to help the team become versatile. Like, you can have a corner that, he brings a different aspect, and he can line up at nickel, and he's a good blitzer. He can line up in the slot, right? This is a matchup game as well. There's so many great receivers in this game, and the game is spread wide open. You want to have people that's versatile, all right, to play numerous positions, to line up, to be able to adjust and adapt to what you're getting from the offense.
And then on top of that, like, this organization, they've struggled to develop the DB position. You look at guys you work with, Jamal Adams, Hamilton, Bradbury. What has been the key for you to be able to get the max out of these talented players?
Well, I live by these 3 principles as a coach. As a coach, you must be able to teach, motivate, and inspire. And any player that I've ever been around, the first thing I'm going to do, I pride myself on being a hell of a teacher. I'm going to motivate them to be better than what they think they should be or reach the potential they're supposed to. And I'm going to inspire them to go get it. And the coaches that we have on the staff, they have the same mantra. They believe in the same thing. So when we get a player, whether we in free agency or in the draft, those are our guys. And we're going to do everything we can in our power to teach, motivate, and inspire them to maximize their potential and go out there and have success.
That might be part of the answer what you're getting ready to give me, but from day one when you meet your guys, what are the things you're going to preach that you want to see, non-negotiables, day in and day out?
Well, we're going to talk about effort and the way we play, right? We're going to talk about having obnoxious communication. We're going to talk about brotherhood, playing as one, right? A team that fails to connect is a team that fails to win. All right, so the connection and the way we play, the way we communicate, the way we gel, that's going to allow the defense to come to life. Because when they believe in one another and they trust in one another to execute their assignment and play at a high level, that's when you get outstanding, violent defenses.
When it comes to Jeffrey Simmons, he's one of the biggest leaders on this team, obviously. How excited are you to have a guy like that, and what are the qualities that you see in him on the field and obviously in that locker room?
Well, obviously I had to talk to him the other day. Man, he has a great personality, outstanding young man. But when you watch him play, he's a big guy. He's versatile. He can play the 3 technique. He can play outside. He's explosive. He has great hands. He can affect the play. He can affect the game by himself. And, to have players like that and put them in positions to have success, it's a wonderful thing coming in here when you have a guy that plays at that level.
This is much like Brian. This would be your first opportunity to be a play caller at this level. What's your approach in that regard, and how do you feel like it'll go?
Well, it's still early in the process, but, we have OTAs, we have training camp. As we go through that cycle, you get better and better. You learn by doing, right? So you get better on your job. Iron sharpens iron. So we'll have call-it periods and all that stuff. So, you'll get better on the job. But also it goes back to what I just said earlier, the people that trained me to get here. And then I can't mention enough, the defensive staff that we put together, they're going to all be a part of it. When we get into game planning, they're going to have their own sections. They're going to be the head coach of their sections, whether it's 3rd down, 2-minute, 1st and 2nd down, drop back, the run game. So I'm going to lean on those guys. And then when we get in the game plan, into the game plan is already done, right? So now it's about calling it how you saw it in terms of how the teams attack, their personnel, their tendencies on situational football, okay? And then as we start to play, we have to adjust to the schemes that they have because they're going to have new wrinkles. And with the guys we have and the wealth of knowledge that we have in that defensive room, we'll be able to adjust quickly, all right, play by play, quarter by quarter, all right, half by half. So we'll be fine in that direction.
You said you and Brian talked about how you would want to do things one day in positions like these. What are some of those shared traits in how you both want to operate?
Well, both of us take pride in what we do. Right, we spend a lot of time on the small details, all right, not missing any steps, being able to connect with people, with players, with people in the building, bringing energy, all right, being humble in the same time, just respecting the process, all right. Brand and I had a long obedience in the same direction. We started off, in smaller jobs, and we've been able to build our careers step by step without missing steps. So when we're in this position, you're prepared for it.
Brian, given your role, obviously, as the game manager, head coach, and calling plays on offense, were you looking to find essentially kind of the head coach of the defense, and did you find that in Denard?
Yeah, I would. That's a interesting way to put it. I know it's how people talk about it these days, but I sought out to find the best defensive coach I could find. Period. Head coach of the defense, however you want to label it. I just wanted the most dynamic, talented young football coach I could find on the defensive side, and I think I found it. Denard's going to have autonomy to run the defense the way he sees fit. As a head coach, I'm always my job is always to oversee that process, help him where he could need help, for him to lean on me when he has questions about what an offense is doing. But at the end of the day, the expectation is that Denard's got control of the defense, and I'll be there as a resource and an asset when he needs it. But yeah, I wanted a guy that could command the defense, command the room for sure, and I think I found that.
Question for both. Forgive me. You guys kind of mentioned earlier, but there's a lot of connective tissue on the staff as far as guys working with each other. You have a former high school teammate on the staff.
Yep.
All those types of things. What does that mean to come into a new place with all you guys having so much connectivity?
Yeah, I think that we're always the product of our environments and our upbringings. And so there's guys you come across over your time in the league, and I think we're fortunate in the fact that we have a lot of really experienced coaches on our staff, even though obviously I'm a first-time head coach and Denard's a first-time defensive coordinator, but it's certainly not our first time coaching, and it's not our first time with a lot of the guys that have been in the rooms that we're in now. The important part to me is that you're open to that experience. So guys that have been around and done things, that I'm going to lean on the people that I've hired to help me. And I think Denard will say the same thing. And so when you have relationships with people, and it's not about just knowing somebody. These are guys that we've been to battle with, been in the trenches with. We've been in up and down seasons and goods and bads. And so I know how to talk to these guys. I know how they're going to respond when I react a certain way. And that's important because you need that. It's hard enough as it is to win football games, and to have guys that you have relationships with that you've built over time. A lot of these guys, for both Denard and myself, have built relationships with these guys over time and believe in their abilities and their ability to communicate with us. And so there is an element to that is important, to have some people that you know. There's also guys that I've not worked with on this staff, and I'm speaking as the head coach. I didn't know J.O. I didn't know Justin Houghton. I've heard of him. I had talked to him, and the minute I sat down with him, I thought this guy can really help us. And so I was open to all roads to building the staff. And there's some guys that I've got relationships with that I've worked with prior. There's some guys that I didn't know at all that I came away really impressed with, obviously Denard being one of them. So I think it's a really good mix. I think we had a great mix of experience. I think we have a great mix of youth. And I think we have a great mix of personalities. I think as you guys get to know them, you'll see it. But I think there is an element of relationship that's important when you're building a staff, that you do have some of that with the coaches you bring in. Obviously, Denard's got great relationships with a few of the guys on defense as well, and that was an important part of building the staff process.
Do you also feel like one of the themes there is the teaching part of it? Sorry.
One more time. Let's go back. What did you from Denard?
Yeah, I just want to hear
it. The same things that Brian just talked about, I feel the same. And then when you're around guys that you've worked with, it's about how those guys handle success, and then how do those guys handle adversity. I've seen most of these guys go through that, and I know when things get tough, they're gonna buckle down. They're not gonna waver. They're gonna get better because at the time when you need to get better, they're gonna be there right there, and they're gonna be knocking at the door. So, I'm comfortable with the guys we have on the staff.
The things you were looking for in putting the staff together. Is another theme you're looking at and just developing how these guys develop players at positions? Because it seems like when you go do the research on any of these position players, like that's one of the biggest things a lot of them have done and had success at doing.
Yeah, that was a intentional part of the process, along with the personalities I was trying to find, making sure they all fit together. Another huge part of that is guys that have shown and proven that they can develop and coach players over time, because that's the name of the game in the NFL. We're going to draft players. They're going to be young. They're going to make young player mistakes. Our goal is always to get those players from that point as rookies to hopefully second contracts, third contracts, Pro Bowls, All Pros. That's the goal, and I wanted to be equipped with a lot of guys that have proven their ability to do that.
How do you plan to approach the synergy aspect on offense? Where it's like I've seen in the past, coaches have had like you go grab trick plays, you grab third and forever, you grab red zone. How do you plan to approach that?
Is that for me or Denard? Both.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be the same way, when we get to talk about when Nick comes up here in a minute. But at the end of the day, we hired people because they're good at their job, and we want our guys to feel empowered to go do their job. And part of that's going to be whatever each person is assigned to do. We're going to have experts in those areas. So third down, red zone, just like Denard described on defense, these guys, everyone's going to have an area that they're responsible for, and their input in part of the game plan. And I'm going to lean heavily on those guys and their expertise, just like Denard said he would as well. That's generally how things are set up these days. It's a collaborative approach. It's a collaborative process to make sure you're getting the best from everybody that's on your staff, and you're getting the most information you can have from each spot. And I think that's how it's what I'm accustomed to. It's how we worked in Cincinnati. It's really how I've worked almost everywhere I've been, but particularly when I was in Cincinnati, that approach served us really well. And you get a lot of good ideas. You get a lot of good perspectives. Like I said in my opening press conference, there's something to the diversity of thought. You want guys that have had different experiences in different places, have different answers, because ultimately we're trying to do the best we can on Sundays to put the guys in the best spot so we can go win games. And that might be information from Kylan Butler as a quality control coach. He may have a tendency for me that he brings up on a Thursday evening in the red zone, and we might use that to help us win a game. And I think that there is nobody that's too small in the process, and there's going to be a lot of guys that have a lot of voice in the process, but ultimately we need as much input from as many places as we can so we can build the best game plan every week.
What's the dynamic going to be? Mine's for coach, so.
I got one more for Denard.
Okay.
Just you obviously work hard to get to this point. I guess what's the feeling as a coach, as a man, to now have a defense you can call your own and maybe proven Brian hired the right guy?
Well, like I said, you go through this phase, you go through life, you go through the job process, and you put in all the work. You start from the bottom and you work your way through. And, you get to the point where you're thoroughly prepared. This is a hell of a feeling, all right? To be named the defensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans is a hell of a feeling. I couldn't be more happier, proud to be in an organization like this. And, we got to put it together, and we got to put a product out there that represents this organization the right way.
Thank you. We'll swap out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
That is new Titans defensive coordinator Denard Wilson meeting with the media.
So, offensive coordinator Nick Holtz. Nick and I, obviously it's pretty well documented, have a pretty strong relationship. I've known Nick for a long time. We've only worked together for one season of all the years that we've both been in the NFL. Nick's had a pretty interesting journey in his coaching career. Just like Denard, one of those guys that started at the bottom. He started about as low as you can get, and he's worked his way to this point. Really excited about the addition of Nick, both for me as a head coach and what he can bring in the offensive coordinator role, which is a little different than what maybe you're used to around here. Having an offensive head coach with a that's calling the plays, with an offensive coordinator by title that doesn't call the plays. It's a setup I'm trying to emulate from how we were set up in Cincinnati with myself and Zach Taylor. It's a system that I know is important, and I know that it works. And so Nick's job, he'll get more into the details of it, but most of it is to make sure that the offensive staff and the offensive players and the offensive scheme keeps running in all the moments that I'm not available to be there, particularly during the course of the week. There's a preparation part of it that's critically important to me. And so very important hire. There's nobody more deserving for it, and I'm incredibly excited to have him on this staff. You'll see he's been around a lot of head coaches, a lot of different schemes, a lot of different ways of thinking and doing business on an offensive coaching staff, and it's going to provide us a lot of advantages as we move forward in the game planning issues that start to come up when you get going. So without that, I'll open it up for Nick Holtz, offensive coordinator, Tennessee Titans.
For you guys, what did you see in each other during that 1 year that you spent together that was so formative?
You think?
I think it's always interesting when you're friends with somebody, you have a long-term, relationship or whatever, and then both got put in roles, and you always think, oh, I want to work with my friends or whatever, and then you get to see them work, and you get to see kind of their process, and how they're detailed, and all those little things that you really don't know when you don't actually get in the fire with somebody. So he really, from the day he got to Oakland, I was a holdover from Jack Del Rio's staff to John Gruden's, and Brian came in right away, and John's a big presence, and there was a lot of veteran stuff in there, and you could see right away how detailed and professional and all the ideas and development he's had in his career.
How do you, is it a little weird to say, like, Brian, how did you do this for Zach as I try to kind of be you for him?
A little bit. I think that could be, but I'm also, I think if you need to be yourself first. So, I'm not going to try to be Brian. We're different people in that regard, but kind of, I think really just as each day goes, seeing a couple more things that I can take off his plate, or, hey, have you thought about this? And it's really kind of an open dialogue the whole time, from how we're trying to figure things out and structure it this way. Hey, do we want this guy to be in charge of third downs? Let's talk about it. Okay. And then we go from there.
What are some of the things you'll preach maybe in the classroom, maybe on the practice field every day?
I think, Denard was talking about, effort, toughness. We're going to stand for all those things, but we really want to see guys playing with great speed, detail, and execution, right? And those are the three things that kind of go right off the bat right there. And you can see those guys taking what we learned from the classroom, taking out to the field, and really growing in that regard.
What's your approach to your attack on offense? Like, are you a more go with the flow, take what they give you guy, or are you like, this is what we're going to do this week, and this is what we're going to do?
I think there's more probably a question for him as the play caller, but I think we see it systematically of we want to run good plays into good looks, right? We kind of want to have the chalk last, where we're not going, oh, they made us hot here, we did do this. So that's kind of, but I guess I kind of defer to him too, of how he wants to see it and build the offense that way.
Yeah, there's a time and a place where you try to dictate pace, tempo. There's another time where maybe you are taking what the defense gives you, where maybe you've called a play action shot, you're trying to take one down the field, they do a good job covering it, you take the check down for 10 yards. That's a little bit of taking what they give you. We are certainly going to try to dictate the terms on offense. That is always going to be our goal. But within being able to dictate terms, you want to be able to have the mindset, particularly the quarterback position, really affects more than anybody else, is knowing when to take the easy throw, when to take the completion versus when to be aggressive. And so that's probably the best way I can say it, is that we'll do everything we can to dictate terms, tempo, style of play, but ultimately we'll be smart about when and where we attack, and when we don't have those options, what do we do next? What's our answer? And that's a quarterback issue more than anybody, but we'll ultimately want to be efficient when we don't have the ability to dictate to a defense.
Nick, you've got, as a coordinator, the opportunity to manage 25, 30 players, manage other coaches and such. What sort of characteristics have you gleaned from other people along the way in regards to just managing people?
I think everybody's kind of got their own management style. I'm not I don't think you'll see me as like a yeller and a screamer or anything like that. But I think if you build relationships with people and you kind of empower them to do their jobs, I feel like the people I've worked for, really, they would empower you. They empowered me, and then they would say, all right, go. And you keep getting more and more and more. And that's how, as a leadership style of, same thing with the players. Hey, we're going to give you this. You keep going that way, and we kind of build the connection in that regard.
Brian was just talking about diversity of experience, diversity of opinion. Just in you guys' conversations these last couple of weeks, how similar are your thoughts on how to build the offense? Have you encountered any differences there, or is it kind of one-minded?
I think they've been pretty one-minded for the most part. We've had a few discussions about, hey, we've done this, and that's, we'll both walk back to our offices, go back to a separate way, and then come back and revisit it. But there's a lot of similarities. I think I've been in a lot of systems, and I've worked for a lot of coaches, even though I was in one place for a long time. So the one reason you get to kind of stay in one place the whole time is that you are adaptable. And so I'd say that's probably been a strength of mine over my career, and really kind of hoping to build on that, and then take the things that he wants to do and the whole staff wants to do. It's not just, Brian and Nick doing all this stuff. We got such a great staff that we're going to build in everybody's ideas.
Nick, with you being a first-time OC, you being a first-time head coach, you also crossed paths with his dad, I believe, at Nebraska. How great is that to kind of have a guy like this as a veteran and experienced guy on the offense to, pick his brain sometimes?
I would say as far as experience goes, there's not really anybody that has more in all the different facets of an organization. He's been a head coach in college in the NFL. He's called plays in the NFL. He's been arguably, in my opinion, the best offensive line coach in football for a long time. His experience and his wealth of knowledge, he's probably forgotten more football than I know. And so it's a huge asset to us to have him. And again, not just because, that's my father, but because of his experience as a football coach. And again, there's not many better out there. And for, Nick worked for him a long time ago. You would argue that they're probably both very different people at this point. Yeah, my dad in particular. But just the ability to have that knowledge, experience, wisdom, perspective on all the things that go on, and from top to bottom in the football process, not just the coaching. And so to have that available to us is huge. And trust me, he'll have quite a bit of input and ability to help us along the process. So,
What's the head coach?
Brian, what was it like?
You can outshout me, but I'm
Okay, but I was already talking before you were. So don't do that.
brothers.
Okay, Brian, as I was saying, I apologize.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I asked you last week when you were here, hey, you thought about interviewing your dad. Now that you got the opportunity to interview, what was that process like, and what was it like attempting to hire him?
There's probably not. It was a complicated process because it wasn't something that I had anticipated him in the moment, if that's what he wanted to do. I wasn't sure he would be contractually allowed to, and it was a process that we had to work through with the Browns organization, and thankfully they were really, kind is the wrong word. This isn't a kind business, but they were aware enough to know the uniqueness of the situation and allow it to continue to go down that road. So appreciative of that perspective from them and allowing it to happen. But, it wasn't something that initially we thought was going to be the case. And it turned out that we were going to be able to make it work. And, probably one of the coolest moments for me is being able to have that happen. It's been really fun to drive to work with him every day and do those things. It's not something I ever thought would work, truthfully. So to be here with him is a really, really awesome moment for me, both as a son and as a professional, because I know how much he can help us with his knowledge. There really wasn't an interview process. It was more he made the decision he wanted to come here to Tennessee, and we went about trying to make it work.
What's the head coach, assistant coach, son, father dynamic like?
It's been really normal. It's been he's very understanding and of what it means to sit in the chair that I sit in every day, having done it himself. He knows when advice is welcome. He knows when he probably should leave me alone. I know when I should leave him alone on the flip side. But it's just been really fun for us to be able to I said he's got this 16-inch clincher, those softballs, the 16-inch softballs, and he played growing up, and he has one of them in his office, and he came in the office the other day. It was probably about 9:00, and we were kind of finishing some stuff up, and I'm sitting there throwing a softball back and forth as we're talking about some different ideas for something. And so just to have that experience has been really cool, and he just wants to be able to help me and to help this organization win, and that part's been really fun. It's been a really cool experience for me so far.
You mentioned driving in. Is he currently living with you? Is he going to get his own place? What's that dynamic?
Oh, he's got his own place. I don't want him. No, he's got his own place. I have my own place. There's with the amount of time we spend together in the building, there's certainly time for space. No, absolutely not.
I'm curious, growing up offensive minded, such. Are you one of those guys who likes just drawing up plays in the dirt and stuff like that, and just thinking of things that might work someday?
Oh yeah, that's kind of the. I think we're all like that at some level. But yeah, we're sitting there talking about plays, and everything's plays off of other plays that make it look like this, and double moves and everything else. So it's kind of been, to be, the, as Brian said so nicely, the lowest of the low quality control guy when I got in the league. And you always say, oh, this is what I wanted to do when I get my shot, or get in these rooms. And the last couple of years of kind of moving up the ladder, it's kind of been doing those things. So yeah, it's kind of you always kind of want to turn your brain off a little bit, but it's tough.
What are your thoughts on Will Levis and just developing him? I mean, look, it's going to be his fourth offense in 4 years. What are your guys' thoughts on it?
So, starting with Will last year in Jacksonville, we weren't really in the first round quarterback market, so I hadn't really watched very much of him. And then starting to watch him, when I was with the Jags as, opponent crossover film, the first thing that kind of jumped off is obviously, the arm talent. And then the second thing I would say that really jumps off is the toughness, right? I think we talk about for quarterbacks, the three things we're looking for is decision-making, accuracy, and toughness. And you saw all that, and I'm sure, he would say he probably wants to improve in some of those areas and things like that, but you could see that baseline there for him of that those skills are there. And so it was, I think it's a reason what made this job probably so attractive to Brian and probably the rest of us.
In terms of this offense, mostly it's a young group of guys led by Levis. It's also a veteran or two, DeAndre Hopkins. How do you go about, I guess, kind of selling yourself as a new guy to a veteran who's accomplished so much like that?
I think when you get into the, when I was coming in as a college guy into the NFL, there's always kind of this intimidating, like, oh, I don't know if I know enough. And I think players always respond to if they feel you're genuine and they know you can help them, right? So if you come there with good information, you're giving them the details, or you're explaining something to them and they can tell you know what you're talking about, they're always going to listen, because players just want to be successful. And so I think that's how you earn your stripes in that regard. It really doesn't have to do with age or experience as much as showing them that.
Brian, your first press conference, you mentioned that you wanted Tennessee to feel like a family, like a place people enjoy coming to work, similar to how you felt in Cincinnati. Yeah. How much of that starts with your coaching staff, and how much are the pre-existing relationships the coaching staff has going to help establish that culture?
It's a huge part of it. Because if we don't enjoy coming to work together, how are we going to expect anybody else to enjoy working together? And so one of the goals when building the staff, one of the traits I was looking for is good people, guys that know how to get along, that know how to build relationships, that are positive forces. And I think you're going to feel those guys as you get to know them. But there's a aspect of building the staff that was important to me, because it's hard to ask a team to be connected. It's hard to ask position groups to be connected if they don't feel the same thing from the people that are in charge of the other part of the process. And so, it was great. Just as an example, yesterday, we had a whole the first day in for really all the coaches officially that had been hired was yesterday. Had a big staff meeting in the team room of all the football operations people, and just a chance for Rand and I and Chad to introduce kind of our staffs to each other. For some of the staffs, you're talking about the training room and the operations and the equipment room, all these people that have an effect on our players every day. They're a part of that process. And we wanted to make sure that everyone also felt the same thing, because, again, if the operation around the players is the way you want it and people are connected the way you want them connected in those roles, the team feels it. And then there is no other way. This is how we're going to operate. And part of that building of the staff and the relationships was people that had experiences with each other. And so they knew bits and pieces of the guys coming in helps that process go a little faster. I think that's probably the best way to answer it.
Nick, will you have any specific responsibilities like red zone or 2 minute, or is that going to be something that is done collectively?
I'll be over, I'm just like a regular offensive coordinator, except I just don't call the plays. So I'll be involved in every part of the game plan. We've kind of talked about, even when during the interview of how we want to structure the week and things like that. And, it's very collaborative, but I'll be in every part of that.
You say you don't call the plays. How much of the hay is in the barn before the game starts about what plays are actually going to be called between the two?
Good question. Quite a bit is the answer. Because of the way that the week operates and the way you build a game plan with the input from the staff. And the input from the quarterback, which is sort of the cherry on top of the preparation process. As you get to Saturday, quarterback's going to have a lot of input as to what he likes and where his favorites are. He'll rank the plays as we get ready to go to a game. So, for example, we might have our top 2 plays in 3rd and 2 to 3 and 3rd and 4 to 6. They're going to come off the sheet just like that, especially early in the game until we have to adjust in between series or at the quarter, at the half, however that works. But we have a starting point plan, just like you have we call them openers. Some people call them first 15, but you have a handful of plays in there that you're trying to probe the defense. You're trying to give your guys a chance to get a rhythm going. The quarterback's going to have an input into that portion of the game plan. So the early part of the game, when the calling of the plays is really sort of already done before the game starts. Where good play callers, I think, make their money and where good staffs separate themselves in this league is how quickly you can pivot in the process of a game. Again, whether that's usually in between series or even trying to think about what's coming next. And so the anticipatory part of that process is really, I think, what separates play callers in the league. But as far as the game plan and the early part of the game, it's going to be relatively well set before the game before it even hits Sunday. And so that's how you hope it to be. That's how you want it to be. And then again, where we make our money on Sundays is how quickly we can adjust and pivot and adapt to whatever we're seeing that might be different than we anticipated.
Brian, you've been very busy, I guess, obviously putting your staff together. What's the process like, and also trying to get up to speed with I guess, the draft, combine coming up, free agency right around the corner? How have you managed to juggle all that?
It's a lot, all at one time, but it's not been something that's been overwhelming. I've felt very good about how the days have gone. The process has been good. I feel good about that. I've been sitting in the draft meetings this week. Obviously, our scouts are in town. The draft meetings have started. I've been involved in those. I'll leave when I got to go handle interviews or make sure something else has got to get done. But ultimately, leaning on all the people that we've hired to get their opinions and thoughts in on the free agency class and our roster. And it allows me to be able to kind of freely move through each element that comes up every day. I'm not in my desk chair very often. I find myself sort of all over the place over the course of a day, but I feel really good about where we're headed, and the amount of work is still a lot. But the good thing is there's a lot of hours in the day, and we keep the lights on late here right now because there's not nowhere for me to go. My family's not in town, so it's kind of all football all day long.
What's left on the staff? How many spots would you say you still have open? Maybe a couple of spots you.
Yeah. Obviously, haven't hired a special teams coordinator yet. That is hopefully coming soon. We've interviewed quite a few people for it. There might be a secondary. There's an assistant offensive line coach job that is still open that we're in the process of interviewing. And then obviously with Frank going to New York, there's a strength coach job that is open as well. So a couple of things outstanding still, but ultimately I'd say we're probably about 95% done. I mean, there's only a couple more left to go, so getting really close to being final.
With a new strength and conditioning coach, will he get the opportunity to make a determination on the people that you retained, or are they going to work on?
Yeah, that's always going to be part of the conversation. But the people that we've retained, just similar to the coaches we've retained in the process, are with us to start, and when you get new people in, you have conversations, and they have opportunities to interview themselves, and that's sort of how that works. Just in general, coaches and strength staff be very similar. So, anytime you're hiring a new person, there's always an influx of potential new people. So that's the nature of our business, and I think we're all on the same page with it.
Did you guys imagine anything close to this when you were running scout team offense at LaSalle back in the day? Both.
No, not even close. This is like he would ask me 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have imagined this. So, and I think the one thing, for us, we just kind of always just kept working. And, he was in Denver and I was at the Raiders. So we didn't talk a lot of football then because, he wasn't telling me anything that the Broncos were doing. I wasn't telling him anything the Raiders were doing. So, no, absolutely not. But it's been a lot of fun so far.
Is Coach Ladd pretty proud of you guys?
I would imagine.
Have you talked to him?
I would imagine. I haven't talked to Ladd. I've talked to some other people there, but I have not talked to Ladd. I'm looking forward to hopefully having him at a game here at some point. because obviously, I don't know if you guys know this either, but Kylan Butler also went to De La Salle. So there's three of us. Obviously, we're a little bit older than him, but there's three of us now that were from our high school. And it's a proud moment for me, just as for a lot of the guys that I went to high school with that we know that have had a lot of success in their respective careers. It's just we've just happened to find our way into the same building, and something I'm proud of. I'm proud of what Nick's done just as a friend. Professionally, he's up to the task. I can't wait to start working. When we actually get to the real football part is going to be the fun part. But just as a fellow teammate and alumni, I'm proud to sit up here with somebody that I've known for that long.
When you guys did talk during those Denver-Oakland years, if you weren't talking football, what were the conversations like? Were you envisioning this sort of stuff, or were you just kind of friendship talks?
Just more friends, and then I don't know, and then we would just, I think, coaches always kind of try to get something from somebody else, and then always talk about, hey, you see what's going on around the league and those kind of things, or hey, did you guys play the Buccaneers this week? Hey, did you guys see the coverage this way or something like that? So some of those kind of things we would always talk about. But
and Brian, I guess the last time we talked to you, maybe you were meeting Will for the first time. I know he's since said you kind of kept him up to date with what's going on with the staff and been in communication with him. What's that first maybe a couple of weeks been like with him, and why it was important to kind of keep him up to speed with everything?
Yeah, it's been great. I know that as the quarterback, you're certainly not you're not owed those explanations or input, but I think the best relationships with head coaches and quarterbacks are ones where they are given those opportunities to share information like that. And I thought it was important to keep Will abreast of what was happening, both hiring wise, where we were at organizationally. Just he plays a huge role in this whole thing too, and so he needs to feel like he's got some, at least has my ear and can come to me with anything he thinks, and then I'm able to tell him what's happening for us. And I think that's important for him to feel like he's got some involvement, some ownership, some input to what's happening. And again, it's not necessarily that he's owed that. It's just that I think that's the working relationship that I want to have with him. And I think for me, starting that precedent was the right thing to do. And I think he's appreciated it, and it's been really fun to start to get to know him. Obviously, he was out in Vegas. I called him the other day just to check in, and he was getting ready to go play with Phil Mickelson. And as I'm learning about Will, I asked him when he came back. He was back here yesterday, and I asked him, "Hey, how was it? What'd you think?" And he goes, "I was just mad that none of my drives hit the fairway." And I was like, "Well, when was the last time you played?" And he goes, "The bye week." I was like, "I don't know, man. I tell you, if I went out and swung a club right now, I don't think I'd hit many fairways either." But just speaks to the competitiveness, and he wanted to play well and show well. So I just thought that was fun that he got a chance to go out there and be around those people. But my relationship with him, his relationship with me and Nick and Bo is going to be really a critical factor in our success. And I want him to make sure that he feels like he has input and ownership into that process, and we can kind of build it from there and hope that he gives me the same kind of feedback I need from him, particularly when you're talking about plays and what you like and how you like it. I think I said in my press conference, one of the things that made Jake Browning so unique and so helpful was that we had a great relationship and rapport where he could tell me and he could tell Zach, "Hey, I don't like this play. Don't call this," without any kind of fear of a retribution or, "No, you're going to run what I tell you." No, that's not how it's going to work. We're going to have an input from him, and I think it's important that he feels that willingness from me, so we can build a successful scheme around his skill set that he feels comfortable with.
Brian, Bernard was asked earlier about looking back at last year and what he saw. Yeah. What have you seen looking back at last year? What have you liked? What have you not liked from him?
Yeah, I mean, you see plenty of things that, like every team. I mean, if I were to turn on our Cincinnati tape from last year, we'd have plenty of things we want to get better at, things you do differently, things that every year you look back and try to find where you can improve. And I think we're always going to start with what are we going to do first, because we're all new and the scheme is new. So I won't spend a ton of time on what happened last year, but I do watch it. I do have awareness because there is things to coach off of. And even if the schemes aren't the same, techniques, how things have happened over the course of a game, reactions, things, especially at the quarterback spot as well. Like you can learn from all those things, and so we'll do our best to learn from it. Obviously, I won't put too much stock in what was good or bad ultimately, because it's going to be different for us this year. But there's definitely things to learn from and coach from what's happened before.
Brian, I'm curious when you sit here in Nashville and throw on the Titans Bengals tape from this year the first time, what goes through your mind then?
We got beat pretty good. That was a tough game. Joe was fighting through the calf injury. Wasn't his best day. I think he didn't feel great that day, and then we didn't play very well. Ultimately, I mean, we started out decent, but then we didn't play well, I think, on either side of the ball, and give a lot of credit to the guys that are here in Tennessee. It was a good day for them. They played really hard. They made life hard on us offensively, and on the flip side, they offensively they had a handful of explosive plays, I think, if I remember it correctly, that generated some points for them. So tough day for the Bengals in Nashville, and again, hopefully we're on the same side of that as a Titan this year when we play. So, but yeah, that was a hard game for us.
When you look at, I guess, the personnel and go back and review this team from last year, with such a philosophy change in terms of how you want to do the offense, how do you go about assessing guys to say this guy can fit into what we do or this guy doesn't fit into what we do?
I think that's our job as coaches, as a coaching staff, is to be able to say, what does the player do well? How can we use them? Because good players fit in every system, and it's just a matter of how you choose to use that player, what positions you put them in to be successful. So it's more about what are the qualities that are good, and how do we use them best to help us win. And again, there's a place for players that you have everywhere across the board that can help you. And so our job is to find out what that is and how to use them, especially guys that are under contract that are here. It's our job to find a way to use them best, and that's always our challenge, is to put those guys in great spots.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Titans coach Brian Callahan and offensive coordinator Nick Holtz, defensive coordinator Denard Wilson from Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. That press conference started at 12:30. It is 1:23. So Blaine and Mickey, we are already 23 minutes into it. We'll take it. Coming up next, the rest of the way with full reaction.